Hello there, everyone, and a very happy Thursday to you today. I hope everyone is doing well. It's wonderful to be here with you on this YouTube Altenew Live. So we've got a lot of fun things to cover today, and I'm delighted to see everybody jumping in. So it's nice to see folks that are coming in. Hopefully we'll see some old friends as well as some new faces as well. So thank you so much for joining, and I look forward to hanging out with you for the next hour or so together. Tonight we have the lovely Kathleen, who will be behind the Altenew badge, and she will be keeping us on track and making sure that any questions get answered, any points get raised. So thank you, Kathleen, for being with us today. Brianna, I see, is there. Nice to see you coming in. Kathleen has posted our regular reminders. So if you share the live while we are live, you could be in for a $15 gift certificate to the Altenew store. So all you need to do in order to do that is share and then post down below in the comments and let us know that you shared and how you shared. And then you will be in for the chance to win $15 gift certificate to the Altenew store. And then Kathleen will be letting us know at the end of the session. So you've got about an hour to share. So there's no rush, but best to do it while we're getting started. Then you can just relax and enjoy today's session. So today we are going to be playing with something that I've been having a great time with. Many of you have also been having a great time with these. These are the watercolor brush markers. And I am going to be playing with the Winter Wonderland set. Now there are a couple of different sets available. This is just the one that I'm going to be playing with today. So as we're looking at the techniques that we'll go through today, bear in mind that these will work with any of our watercolor brush sets. So we'll talk a little bit more about this. We're going to do some cards that have a Christmas style or a winter style to them, and then some that are kind of a generic floral theme. And then that way we've got something we're kind of in the midst of people getting ready with their Christmas cards, but floral cards are always in style, so we don't want to forget about those. So what I'll do is I'll run through some of the products that I'll be using, show you a few sneak peeks of some of the cards that I've made, and then I'll tilt down my tablet and we'll get right into crafting. So we're going to be playing with the Festive Poinsettia stamp set. You can see it's got a nice big poinsettia image here. Also lots of sentiments, peace, love, blessings. You have a happy holidays in here as well. This, as you can see, is perfect for doing a watercolor effect. I love this project that they've done on here. So this is kind of a nice inspiration. So we have the Festive Poinsettia stamp, and of course, there's a matching die. And that will give you the outline shape for this, as well as all of those little innies in there that you don't want. You don't want to be bothered cutting those out. So it'll give you a really beautiful effect. Now, if you're not doing Christmas cards or winter cards, but you still love your florals, we've got the Precious Peony. This is one of my favorite stamp sets. I love these big blossoms. You've got kind of a curved shape here. Of course, you could do two of these to create a wreath if you wanted. This one looks really beautiful, accenting photos on scrapbook pages. And then you've also got sentiments on here. Good job, congratulations, so happy for you. These also, when they are colored, really lend themselves well to a less formal, kind of more playful watercolor effect. So you can notice on here, they're not going all the way to the edges. It's a little bit looser of a coloring design. So we're going to take a look at that sort of foolproof watercoloring. And then of course there is also the matching die for this, which is great because this just gives you even more options for layering. And if you love your foam tape like I do, then it's a lot of fun to use that. Hi Sue, I'm glad you didn't miss me. And Jane, nice to see you. And Anya, nice to see you as well. So hi to everybody who I have missed as I've been whizzing through our products. Hello and welcome. We can also do stenciling with our water brush markers. So we're going to talk about this too. I'm using the beach towel stripe stencil for this. I love this stencil for just about anything. It's one of those that just goes with everything, works with every technique. So I'll be using the stripes, but I'm sure you can find a stencil in your stash that will do the trick too. And last but not least, I'm not going to demonstrate with this. You guys know me well enough by now to know that I love the framed die collection. As you can see, I've got a lot kind of stashed up. These just really, this one in particular really fits perfectly to so many sentiments. And so I've been using these a lot on my card projects. So just thought I'd show that to you as well. Okay, so I'm going to kind of clear some space here. And I want to show you one other thing with the watercolor brush markers. So this is a swatch sheet that I put together with the help of Altenew. When you go to the product page on the Altenew website, you'll see that you can print off a color swatch sheet. Now you can do one with colors on it, you can do one that's blank, and then you do your own color swatching, which is what I did here. So I printed this off just on regular printer paper, and then I did my little swatches onto a heavier cardstock. I do recommend working with a heavier cardstock, it just will make it look better. But I wanted you to be able to see the colors. So we've got everything from ruby red, we have rouge, citrus burst, mountain mist, lagoon. There's metallic silver, and if I tilt this, you can see it's actually metallic. There's an espresso, jet black, the Persian blue, and the emerald, which means that if you like coloring flowers, like lots of us do, and you like working with markers, well, of course, the first thing you probably think is to simply color in a stamped floral like I've done here. What I like about this set is that you've got the option when you're talking about flowers. Flowers can be ruby red, they could be the rouge, you could have some citrus, bright yellow flowers. You could even go into the lagoon as well. Then there's also the Persian. And working with the espresso, this can be a really beautiful vintage effect. So you've got your flower colors pretty much covered, and then you also have your leaves. So this is a nice set for those of us who like to do a lot of coloring in with floral images because you've kind of got a nice basic spectrum. So that is for our Winter Wonderland set. I gave you a little sneak peek of one of the techniques that we'll be doing. So we're going to be taking a look at just using them to color in. We'll also do some little bit more minimalist coloring, kind of a tracing effect. I'm going to show you the stenciling, and we will also work in a little bit of misting and baby wipes, my secret weapon when working with watercolors. I've got a lot of card projects because I really got going with this, and I had a very nice cozy weekend working with these. So I've got a lot to show you. I'm going to kind of shuffle some things out of the way, and I'll just go ahead and tilt down my tablet and we can get started. So hang in there with me. Down we go. So you can see my work surface. So the first thing I want to do is just show you a little bit about the markers. So let me get out the Persian blue here. So when you get your markers, they won't look like this because mine have been well put to use. What you'll want to do is, when you get yours, go ahead and unscrew the top part from the barrel. Now I'm going to be careful because, as you can see, there's ink going around here. But right in this area, you're going to have a little plastic ring. It's going to be right in there. So what you'll need to do, and that's just for shipping, pull this out, remove the ring, and then just put this back on together. So do make sure you do that before you try and put these to use. Then what you'll want to do is let the ink flow down the barrel into the tip, because when you get yours, all of your tips will be white. They don't have the ink flowing through there. But there's a helpful little, I don't know if you can see it, it says push. So this is where you're going to push and just work on a piece of scrap paper, gently push that until the ink flows all the way down. But you do need to remove that yellow-green ring, otherwise nothing will come out. You'll be pretty frustrated. So that's just the getting started. Now, when you have these, you'll notice you can really lay down like a nice wash of color here. The bristle is there, the tip is quite generous, which means that you can cover some space on here. It does come to a nice fine tip though, so you can, kind of play with thick and thin lines. You can also do pretty detailed, even like little dots. So you've got a lot of options in terms of what you can do with this bristle, with the brush. But again, you can cover some nice areas. Now, when I'm kind of working with this, I am not pushing on the barrel unless I want to really squeeze out a lot. So if I'm just coloring, I'm just holding this and the ink is flowing through. So I don't need to squeeze on here. If I do squeeze on there, I'm going to get quite a lot of ink coming through. So you just want to make sure that you're keeping track of that so that you're not over flooding a very small and delicate area. So that's how easy it is to use these. So this is really all there is to it. So now that we know the basics, we can get into some demonstration. The other thing I want to point out is that as this is drying, I think you can see it stays really pretty true to color. So it's not fading a lot, it's not getting noticeably lighter, it's just drying slightly and then we are ready to go. So there's not a huge noticeable change in the color. Okay, so I'm going to set aside this swatch sheet, bring in my MISTI, and let's take a look at stamping and coloring one of these beautiful peonies. So let me grab my stamp set, got everything kind of laying everywhere as usual. I do recommend when you're working with these brush markers that you work with a nice sturdy weight of cardstock. So I would not recommend a lightweight cardstock. Use a Nina, or you can also use some of the watercolor cardstocks available. Okay, so I've got my peony. I'm going to grab this design here and just pull that off. This is not the one I used for my card, but I think it's a pretty one, so I'll show you what this will look like. Now, when you're working with a water-based medium like these, you do want to make sure that when you're stamping, you're using an ink that's not going to blend or blur or bleed when you combine the two. So I'm using the Obsidian pigment ink. This is going to stay nice and crisp and true, unlike a dye ink. So don't use your dye inks with your watercolors. They will smear together. So I'm just going to ink this up. And I love these stamps. These are just really some of my all-time favorites. Okay, and there we go. So pretty. And I'm just going to grab something to clean this off with, and then we can start coloring. So you can see with the design of this nice open area, you really have a beautiful coloring option. So I'm going to set this over here, and with my card, I was using the Rouge and the Lagoon. So let me choose some different colors. Since I've got my Persian blue out, maybe I'll go ahead and use that. And I will also use, let's see, I think I'll use the Mountain Mist. Mountain Mist is one of my favorites for leaf colors. I'm going to start with my Persian blue, and I'm just going to apply the color. I'm not going, too specifically in here. It's just going to give me a nice even coverage on here. So I don't have to worry about streaky lines or anything. I'm kind of working in a circular motion and just applying this color down. Okay, so you can see, again, just how beautiful that color is and how I'm not getting any smearing or blurring from the ink. I'm going to come in and just kind of clean up that edge there and come around in here. This Persian blue is one of my favorites. It's almost like a periwinkle. It's got a little bit of purple in it. So there's my first flower. I know it's not perfect around here, but I'm going to let that go because I'm going to do another little surprise technique for you. So again, just adding this color. I'm kind of holding my pen at a bit of an angle and get that color in there. Now I've got these little guys here. I'll do just a little circle of color. Okay, so there are my two flowers. Not perfect, but that's okay. And then I'll come in with this mountain mist. Now the mountain mist is a beautiful, soft, pale green. So I know it's light. It's not as bold as the other green, certainly not like the Lagoon or the Evergreen, but it does add just a really nice complement to that Persian. Okay. So now I've got my color on there and it's pretty much colored and ready to go. Now what I'm going to do, now you can go through, I should say, you can go back and really create some shades and depth with this flower. I'm not going to worry about that at this point. I'm going to come in with a little mister bottle with some water in it and just give a quick mist. Just 2 quick mists there. And that's not flooding the image, but it is kind of reactivating some of the ink on there. I'm going to take a baby wipe, wrap it around my finger, and I'm just going to come in here and I'm just kind of pouncing. So you can see I'm picking up some of the color, but I'm also sort of moving it around on my colored areas. I haven't added so much water that I've got a flooded image, but I am creating some really simple texture in there. So you can see where that baby wipe has lightened some of the Persian blue on there. Now this is definitely why you want to have a nice sturdy cardstock, because you don't want something that's going to start pilling and ripping. I like this though as a nice approach for creating shadows and light and dark areas without having to be a real true colorist. So you can see there. Now I'm not even going to worry about the leaves on there. I think that looks just fine. And then there you go. Now if I want to, I can go back and fill in some of those white areas. I kind of like it though, where it's not going all the way to the edges, where you do have a bit more of a casual look. And I think you can even see as this is lightening and lightening that you've even got a bit of pink coming through in some of that Persian blue, which is nice as well. So again, just grab your baby wipe, wrap it around your finger and do a little bit of easy pouncing. Up and down, not like choo-choo-choo-choo-choo, because that is where you can start really messing up your paper. Simple and easy. 2 colors, and again, this would be beautiful with some of the reds or the pinks as well. So this is when you want to use that baby wipe technique. This is when you simply want to color, again, not going all the way to the edges, and just pop it all together. Now I have used the die to go along with the peony, so I've cut that out, lifted it up onto some foam tape. Super simple, clean and easy. You've got some of those satin gold sequins on there. The background paper that you see on here, I did not stamp that. That is from a paper pack, a little 6x6 paper pack called Sweet Moments. And so you've got a lot of different pattern designs on here. And let's see, yeah, there we go. So a lot of those just worked really nicely. So popped it down on my background and then can add my flower. So technique number one, quick and easy. Let's take a look at another one. Again, also really clean and simple, very easy to do. And this one is usually using more of a tracing effect. So I think you can see around my blossom here that I'm not coloring it in. I'm just kind of going around and outlining some of the detail on the petals. So I'm going to grab my Misty once again and pop that down. And I'll take another one of the stamps. Let's see. No, I won't take that one because it won't fit. I'll take my other one. Here we go. And once again, I'll use my Obsidian Black for this. I think you guys know this is like my go-to black ink pad. I loaned it to a friend for a little while. She was doing some stamping and I missed it. Like I really missed it. I was glad to have it back. I think she got the good use of it too, so that was quite nice. Okay, so once again, nice, crisp, clean, open lines, perfect for coloring. Pop this one aside, and now let's take a look at that Citrus Burst, which is really one of my favorite colors. I love yellow flowers, and I think there's just something really bright and cheerful about them, but sometimes I tend to go with like the pinks and reds more instinctively when I'm reaching for color. So I always have to remind myself, go for the yellow from time to time. So this is the Citrus Burst. And when I'm coloring this, I'm not going to, go across like I did with the other image. I'm going around the outline of each of these petals really loosely. So I'm not being too particular about this. And if I do some overlapping, that's okay, because this is such a light color. It's a little bit less obtrusive. So come along here with this big blossom. So there you can see, really quick and easy to do. Now I can come in and do a little bit more detailing with the center. I've got this small blossom on here. Don't worry if you get some areas that are kind of accidentally filled in, that's fine. And there we go. So really simple and easy to do. And this is a great technique, especially with this flower set, because these big open blossoms are just so easy to do this with. Okay, so I've got my flower on here now. Let me come back to my Mountain Mist and do the same thing with the leaves. And again, just coming around the outside, as well some of the inside details, some of the leaf centers. Now, because you can get a really nice fine tip, with these, you can also really go and color in the very fine detail of some of the stems on here. Sue is saying, oh, you can send me this card anytime. No problem, Sue, no problem. Okay, so there we go. Really lovely color combination. You kind of can't go wrong with this. I think it's just such an easy way to create something soft and gentle, but still has some color in there. Now, with the rest of the card, what I've done, here is my frame die, so I have to point that out. And I stamped on the inside just a portion of one of the floral images so that you have that just kind of peeking out of there. The completely, totally proud of you message on here is also from that same peony stamp set. So those all come together. This is up on foam tape. This is up on a couple of layers of foam tape. So this is a bit of a dimensional one. I went a bit crazy with that because I liked it to have a lot of shadow coming in behind here. Now these strips here are washi tape, but it's not the washi tape the way it comes. It's the washi tape cut down. So this is the washi tape. This is the Deco Lines roll. I love it. It's one that I use quite a lot. What I like about it, because it is so wide, you can use it as it is. You can also just put it onto a piece of white cardstock, secure it down, and then trim it into narrower pieces, and then just simply glue those down. So that's what I've done here. And it didn't need so much of the black. I wanted it just to have a little bit of contrast and something that would be working nicely with my yellow in there, because I think that makes a nice contrast. You'll notice I've got some spattering in the background. This is the jet black, which is also in our set today. So to do that, all you need to do is have your piece of cardstock. Let me get my jet black. And what I like to do is you can kind of, spatter it from the brush, but I like just getting a little bit onto my craft sheet so that I make sure I've got a nice wet tip without it kind of being squeezed through. And then just the same way you would do it with a regular water brush, just kind of spatter that in there. So super duper easy to do. You can also, of course, add some water to this and create a lighter effect, and then you can get some varying colors. And that works, of course, for any of the colors. You could have different shades of the blues or the reds, and that would come across quite nicely. Okay, so I'm gonna clean this up. That wasn't effective. I'll clean this up, and then we'll take a look at some other techniques. So we're really exploring quite a lot with these so far. And I think you can see that they are really just really nice to use. Okay, let's take a look here at our stencil. So this is again using the beach towel stripes stencil. And I'm also using the peony for this one, for this card. And I'm not going to demonstrate this portion because we've already seen a lot of the coloring already, but I want to show you the background. So the background is that stencil. It is using a reverse stenciling approach. It's going to give us a nice watercolor effect and one that just works beautifully with this stripe. So you can see it's got the cleanness of the stripes, but it's also got some of that watercolor. So let's see, I'm gonna grab a piece of, this is a watercolor, smooth watercolor cardstock. So something nice and heavyweight. And I'm gonna grab a piece of just scrap paper here. Let's see, yeah, this one I'll do. And I'm just popping it down so that I have a little bit less to clean up. I'm gonna put my stencil down on top of this. Now, what I want to do is take my marker, and I'm gonna use the, let's go with the Lagoon for this one. When I do this, normally we're putting color through the stencil, so through these open areas, but in this case, I want to get my marker on the plastic. So I just have this scrap piece underneath, just because inevitably I'll go off a little bit. Okay, so I'm coloring onto the plastic, which seems to make no sense until you see that I add water on here, and then things will make a lot more difference. Okay, so I'm just adding this on and pop some of that there. And then again, bring back my mister, and I'm going to mist this and get rid of this guy here. Take my watercolor cardstock, and I'm just going to press this down, holding it down and kind of burnishing it with my hand. And then when I pull it off, I've got that really fun watercolor effect, but I still maintain the lines. You can still see those pretty well. The more water I use, of course, the blurrier this will be, so you can experiment a little bit with how much water you're using. You can add more water to this. You can do a couple of different colors if you want to. You can have a lot of fun with this technique. Now, it works beautifully with the stripes, but it will also work with any stencil where you have enough of the plastic to put any color onto. So some that are really, really fine and detailed are not going to do so well, but if you've got enough plastic on there to get your watercolor on, then you can do this technique. And of course, keep in mind, however much water you use, that's going to impact how watery your effect will be. It's a really nice way. Yes, I can see. Yeah, I just saw the name flash by. I'm sorry I didn't catch that, but she said it's a nice way to get another look out of your stencils. And yes, that's absolutely true. So then here's another idea for using this. I've just glued it down onto the front of my card blank. Now I ran the edges through some of that watery ink as well, just to give a little bit of definition. Again, here's my frame die with the sentiment on the inside. And I've colored the peonies again with a little bit of that water, just to kind of bleach it out a little bit. So something kind of soft and pretty, but I did want to show you that stenciling technique because I think that is a lot of fun. Okay, so let's move on to another look. This one is going to be using embossing powder. So because embossing powder will provide a resist on your images, it is just absolutely perfect in combination with your water markers. So let's take a look at the embossing process, and we're going to be switching into our poinsettia. So I'm going to move aside my poinsettia. Move aside my Precious Peonies and bring in my poinsettias. Poinsettia, I should say. There's just one, but we're stamping it lots of times. So you can see it's a nice crisp look. When you've got embossing powder on here, it just gives it a whole other effect. And remember, I was really taken with the back of the packaging here. I thought that was pretty cool. So let's have a go with this. I'm going to be using the rose gold embossing powder. And of course, I will need some embossing ink. Now, when you get your embossing ink pad, it will be crisp and clean. You can tell mine has been used and loved. It's looking a little bit grubby there, so apologies for that. It is well used. Okay, and I'm going to get some of my cardstock here to do some embossing. So I have to dig for a little bit. Let's see. This one's got some texture on it, so I want something nice and smooth. Okay. And rather than using my pigment ink, I'll be using my embossing ink for this one. Okay, so here we go. Again, I'll just grab this and pull this off. And then let's see, position this on here. Let's do it that way so that we've got a nice angle on here. Okay, so a couple of things I need to have on hand if I'm going to do my heat embossing is, of course, my embossing ink. I'll have my embossing powder with a jar open so that that's ready to go. I also need to have my heat tool on hand, so I've got that ready, and as well a folded piece of scrap paper to catch my excess embossing powder. Okay, so lots of you know this drill already, but for anyone who is new, we'll step you through it. So all I need to do is ink up my stamp with my embossing pad. Now it's clear, so you won't be able to see anything. Mine was a little bit dry, so I used a bit of the embossing refill just to juice it up a little bit. So this is another great thing to have on hand just as your ink pads start to run dry. Always a good idea to have that refill. Okay. So we'll see if I got my refill in there enough. And you can kind of see the outline of that. So what I'm going to do, working pretty quickly, is get this out of the way. Get my scrap piece of paper here, and then just immediately cover this with my embossing powder. Now, it looks like I'm wasting it, but don't worry. I'm tapping off the excess, and then I will have my image on here. Now, I've also got a lot of excess on here too. You can see where my thumbprint was. So I'll just shimmy some of this away. I also have a dry fine tip brush, and I'll just come through here and get rid of any excess. Sometimes it gets in places that you don't want it to. Okay, so shake that off. And I'll set this aside, and then I'm going to use my scrap paper just to funnel this all back into the jar. Okay, pop the lid back on here. Very important step to take before you start heat setting. Okay, so I'm going to heat set this quickly, so hang in there with me for a sec, and then we'll get to coloring. Okay, so my heat tool has melted all of that embossing powder. Has it melted all of it? Do I have all of it? I think I have another little quick bit. And now it's melted all of my embossing powder. And now I am ready to go. So when I'm working with this, because I've got a nice fluid medium, I've got the edges on here, the raised edges of that embossing are going to act as a resist. So it's going to still shine through here. I don't need to worry about it, going over and hiding any of those beautiful lines. Okay, so I'm going to use the ruby red for this, perfect for a poinsettia. And I'm gonna come in, and just like we saw with the first card project, I'm just scribbling in color. Okay, so I'm not too particular about it. I am kind of going in the direction of the lines on here. Not squeezing, I'm just letting that ink flow out. And again, not coloring everything. Maybe a little bit more on this one. Come down here. And there we go. Okay, so there's something, you can see some of that gold shining on here. So you can see that I haven't obliterated everything. Now what I'm going to do, the same thing that I showed you in that very first demo, I'm going to grab my water mister and just let that react. Do a couple of times. You can tape this down if you want to. Sometimes I'll, put a jar on there or something. You can do that if you want. I'm going to grab that baby wipe while this is still fluid, and I'm just going to press this color around. So I'm definitely going outside the lines. I'm not too worried about that. Can come back and mist a little bit more. I want this to be watercolory, lightly blended, really making the most of that shine from the embossing powder. Okay, and just kind of pat that on there. Now if I want to, I see that I've missed a couple here, so then I can come back, add a little bit more, just to give a bit more definition. Okay, and once again, misting and pouncing. And when it dries, you will have that beautiful kind of halo effect. Super easy to do. Okay, and so there you go. So all you need to do is just let that dry. The paper does, you know, with a lot of water on it, does tend to curl a little bit. So after it's dry, I recommend you pop it underneath a stack of books. You can also speed this up with a heat tool as well. So I'm going to do that quickly. Because then what you can do after you've got that pretty much dried on there is come back again with your black and do just a little bit of spattering on here. And that's going to give you even more of that beautiful watercolor look. And again, with that shine on there, once this all dries, this is going to look really nice. So when it's dry, you will have an effect. Hang on. Once again, a little bit of a cleanup session. When that has all dried, you will have an effect that looks like this. So the Happy Holidays is the stamp set, is from the same poinsettia stamp set. And I've done this also in the rose gold embossing, but you can see on here, rather than just the one, I've stamped lots of poinsettias all on one piece of cardstock and just let all of those colors go in one go. Now, if you wanted something with even more color, you can also add several of the colors together. So this is actually working in some of the emerald. It's got some of that Persian blue in there as well. I know poinsettias are not blue, but it does give a really pretty multicolored look and again with some of that gorgeous gold on here. More spattering. I've got lots of spattering on the side. It does have quite an artsy look. I recognize that this is not a traditional Christmas card or Christmas color, but I thought it was kind of fun. And so I thought I would be sure and show it to you because you can go quite traditional. You can also go a little bit more untraditional, I suppose. For traditional though, I also wanted to show you, just as an example, this guy here. So here we've got the poinsettia, again, just simply stamped using the black, but working with a softer effect. So let's take a look at this. I'm going to grab a piece of this white cardstock. And this one is a bit more watercolor cardstock. It's a thicker cardstock design. It's not textured, but it does have a very soft texture to it, but it's not, sometimes you get some really high texture cardstock, and that is a little bit different, so a smoother one. Okay, now for this one, again, I'm returning to my obsidian black, and I'm going to stamp this down. I really want you to see how beautifully this stamps just in a simple black. And the detail on here is really nice. I know it's upside down for you, so hang on. Turn this around. And you can see how pretty that is. So you can stamp it right on. You can also go ahead and do the die cutting on this as well. But let's take a look at doing some simple coloring. So this is the lagoon that I'm going to use. And in this case, I'm kind of doing some of that tracing that we did before with our rose or with the peony. And I'm just going to put color in the center of the leaves. So just along the, I call it the spine of the leaf. I don't think that's the technical term, but if there are gardeners out there, you can tell me if I'm wrong. So I've just got the centers of those leaves. And then I'm going to take my regular water brush. So this is one that doesn't have anything in it, doesn't have any water in it. You could also use a regular fine tip paintbrush. I'm going to get a little bit of water on my craft sheet. Pick this up, needs to be cleaned. And then I'm just going to work from the center in some kind of scuffly circular motion. You can see the difference between this one that just has that green going in the center and this one where it's got some more blending on here. So again, just circular motions, nice and gentle. Not flooding with anything, but I am letting that water go where it would like to go. Okay, really easy. Because we've got some nice open areas, you don't have to worry about it being perfect. This is handmade after all. Okay, so I think you can start to see where it's just picking up some shading on there. Because this is a watercolor cardstock, it's made for this kind of technique, so it's going to take that watercolor really beautifully. Okay. Oh, I forgot one. There we go. Just pick that up and add a little bit more color on there. And here we go. Okay. Then if you want to, you can either leave the stems empty or you can kind of pick up some of that color and use it to color in other areas. So this is what I would tend to think of as maybe a bit more traditional of a design, but I want to always give you the option of going simple and traditional, or you can do something a little bit wilder, more colorful. Totally up to you. Kind of depends on who you're giving the card to. Okay, now my very last technique that I want to show you, and I know I've been throwing a lot at you, but there's really so much that you can do with these water brush markers, so I'm always excited. Because I've got my craft sheet right in front of me, I'm going to set that aside, and I'm going to grab a piece of plain white cardstock. This is just a little piece. This is not anything special, just a sturdy cardstock. And I'm going to, let's see, I haven't used the rouge yet, and the rouge is one of my favorites. So I'll start with my Citrus Burst, and I'm just going to scribble on here. And then here's some of the rouge. I'll add that on there. And let's give this a bit of a mist. Now you can leave this as it is. You can also grab, if you have a little brayer on hand, you can grab a brayer, pick up some of that color, kind of blend it. These two colors together will look really nice. So I've got kind of a blended puddle in here. Take your cardstock, pop it down, and then lift, and you have a really pretty instant background. And when that dries, you can stamp on it, you can die cut it, you can do lots and lots of different things with it. So lots of easy techniques you can do just by popping some of this color down onto a craft sheet. And you can keep dipping into that, adding more color, adding more water as you will. So a couple of other swatches I wanted to show you, because I told you I had so much fun with this. This is one using the lagoon, and I think if you take a close look, you can see I've got some of that metallic silver on there. So I did the spattering, but with silver. This is one of my favorites, and I'm saving it, but I don't know what I'm saving it for, but I'm saving it. So maybe you also have some of those pieces that you think, ooh, I'll never be able to do that one again, so I better save it for something special. And here is some of the Persian blue, really lightened. It's got a lovely lilac shade to it. So almost in the same way when we saw using that baby wipe to lift off some of the color. Really pretty, it's really blended here, not so much up here, which is pretty cool. This is on matte cardstock. This is the same color, same process on glossy cardstock. So coated cardstock, of course, is not going to absorb the same way matte cardstock will, so you get two different looks. So if you have a stash of glossy cardstock, like I do on hand, this is a lot of fun to put into practice, so have a play with that. Now, I've been dipping in the whole sheets with these. With this one, I just did a little edge. So I basically just kind of held it down and lifted it up quickly so that I've got just an edge on here. It could be the bottom of the card, it could be the top, it could be a side. If anybody here was in my class last week, the tea time, this is not a card that we did in the tea time class, but when using the tea time stamp and die collection, that's exactly what I did here. And then colored in the stamps using the water brush markers too. So you can get some pretty fine detail, as you can see here. But you can also get this really fun, beautiful watercolor effect too. So we have had a lot of different things to play with today. We've been doing all kinds of things from our basic color in technique to let's lighten it up with a little bit of baby wipe magic. We've done outlining or sidelining, however you want to call it. We've gone traditional with our poinsettias and really just done some soft color. Oh, again, this is, of course, my frame dies and some more of those sequins. Don't forget you can combine these with stencils for a reverse stenciling look, and you can do all the colors or just one of the colors and add some spattering and get some really different looks with this. So hopefully I've given you some food for thought and maybe even inspired you to have a go with your water brush markers. So I'm going to tilt up the camera so that we can say goodbye because we're coming to the end of our hour together. And Pauline, you bought the washi tape. I love this washi tape. I hate to be an enabler, but they have lots of washi tape. I have on my list some of the other designs too, because the washi tape is great. It's affordable, it's easy to use, and it gives you lots of different effects. So good job on the washi tape. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Okay, so once again, the watercolor brush markers that we have been using today, this is the Winter Wonderland set. 40% off, I think, was what I saw. So you're getting a good deal. I would also add, you may be shopping for Christmas or the holidays coming up. This would be a great set for a gift. That gift may go to you. No judgment there. But if you are shopping ahead, I would just say that that would be a really cool gift for someone and a great price. Okay, some other things that we were working with. Our Festive Poinsettia stamp set, coordinating die so you don't have to cut out all the fiddly bits. Also, hold on, they're here somewhere. Also, this Precious Peony stamp set. Hold this up for you so you can see. Big, beautiful blossoms that are just asking to be colored in. And then, of course, we've got the Precious Peony die set that goes along. Anything else? Ink pads, the clear embossing, and the obsidian black. Do be sure when you are coloring in with your markers that you use a permanent ink, not a dye-based ink, because otherwise you'll smear it and you'll be unhappy. So do keep that in mind as you are coloring, stamping and coloring. So thank you so very much for joining us this evening. We've just hit an hour. If you have not shared, please do in the next minute or two and post how you shared down below and let us know. Thank you very, very much for joining us today. I hope you had a great time. As you can see, I had a really good time with these markers, and I suspect you will as well. Thank you so very much, Kathleen, for being the magic behind the badge. And if there are any questions, do leave a comment down below, and I always go back and check the next day just to make sure that I didn't miss anybody. So I hope you have a very good evening. Have a good weekend, and I will catch you again next Thursday. I believe I'm back here for another live. So hopefully we will see each other then. Until then, take care, have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you later. Good night.